you found the skeleton. How would you tell people that? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Alright, hey everybody, welcome to Dapper Reacts 24. If I Only Had a Brain. Genesis Apologetics 2. There's a lot of, subtitles and, part 24, but it's also part 2 because of a sub-series, whatever, you guys know what you're here for. And of course, I am here, as usual, with the lovely Vishanti, who is rocking double fit feeder cuffs. Vishanti, how are you today?
As I promised.
Yes. Well, the
also,
people did pay for
I'm
it.
immune to fire coffee damage, so...
Yes, there was concern about whether or not you were being boiled alive in the thumbnail. But yeah, you get that fire resistance, so, don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's handy, you know? Fire resistance.
Well, it's very nice, because sometimes you just want to go diving in some coffee, and it helps not, get, third-degree burns.
Those are unfortunate when you get those. Yeah. All right, well, first I want to say welcome to everybody. I know that there was some confusion as to whether or not this is the normal time slot. This is the normal time slot because the normal time slot is noon Mountain Standard Time. It is currently noon Mountain Standard Time. It is 1 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, but I don't care about that because here in Arizona, unless you're in the Navajo Reservation, we stick with Mountain Standard Time. So, take that. Speaking of reservations, I recently found out that there's basically no information about the O'odham language, which means that as far as I can tell, the only well-documented Uto-Aztecan languages out there are, Nahuatl, Ipil, and, yeah, that's, it.
What, Yucatec Maya?
Yucatec Maya is an Uto-Aztecan, though.
Is it not?
I don't think it is. Maybe it is, and I'm wrong. If it is, then it's another well-documented Uto-Aztecan language. But, yeah, there's, nothing on most of the other ones. Soulcat for $5 says, will Genesis Apologetics exceed 1 Hoven because of the recalibration after Kent's 75 divided by 3 equals 45? I mean, is it that bad? He was within an order of magnitude. Well, he was within...
That was painful.
Yeah, now I've had some people say, well, he was actually trying to figure out 2 out of 3. Maybe he was. But he said 1/3. So, I don't know.
I'm not willing to be gracious to him on this one.
Well, yeah. And, I get it. I was pretty drunk at the time, but, No, apparently Mayan is its own language family and is not Uto-Aztecan. So, yeah, it still remains, Nahuatl, Pipil, and, that's it. All the other ones, no.
Wait, is Purepecha? Is that Uto-Aztecan?
Don't know.
Because some people do still speak that.
I mean, some people speak a whole lot of things. There's O'odham speakers 15 miles from me. But their language isn't well documented anywhere. So...
Well, you know what? F Spain. All my homies hate Spain.
Yes. Alright, I don't have that meme pulled up, though. Sorry. Anyway, guys, we're not really here to talk about the sparsity of linguistic documentation for Uto-Aztecan languages, which, in case you're wondering, is a language family that was originally spoken throughout much of the western, what's now the United States, and Mexico, as well as the southwest of what's now the United States. It includes a lot of languages like Comanche and Pipil, Nahuatl, a bunch of others. Anyway, that's not super important. What's more important is first, before we get into the actual answers in Genesis, I have a couple thank yous. First, I have a gift from DM who got me a mouse pad that I'm using, as well as a Learn Nahuatl book, which is very nice. Although, the intro heavily assumes that, the only reason most people are here is because they likely have Nahuatl-speaking ancestors. I definitely don't. I do have native North American ancestors, but they definitely did not live anywhere where any of the Uto-Aztecan languages were spoken. As far away as possible while still being on the same continent. So... Yeah,
that's okay, though, because guess who does have ancestors that spoke Nahuatl?
You. Yeah, there you go. Alright.
Me.
And that card came with, or that book came, and mousepad came with a book card that says, a bag of geoducks is called an AIG from DM Which, in case you ever... And by geoducks, I mean gooey ducks, because that's how it's actually pronounced. But it's for some reason it's spelled geoducks, which makes it seem like a Pokemon. Anyway.
Yeah, that absolutely got me last week, that I thought it was a Pokemon.
Yep. Well, that's why I said
That's why I said
geoducks this time. All right. Also, I want to say thank you to Laughing Coyote, who got me a nice set of dice. They're metal dice that came in a leather pouch. They're extremely heavy for dice. I mean, they're not extremely heavy, like, in the entirety of things that I own. Like, they're not like my car. But, like, yeah, these are pretty hefty for dice. And they're sharp. I really, really, really do not want to step on the D4 from this set. Because that's going to go right through.
That's like a dinosaur-sized Lego.
Yeah, basically. And so,
Also,
Laughing Coyote says...
Well, you're thanking people. I'm going to thank people. Because I got my new external hard drive.
Ah.
Thank you, Jonathan D. Lindecker. Yay.
Nice. So also, I got from Laughing Coyote that dice set, and the card said, "Enjoy your gift. People need math rocks." From Laughing Coyote on YouTube. Which, yes, people do need math rocks. Math rocks are really cool.
Yeah.
Even outside of gaming, anytime I just need like a random number, dice are always a handy way to get one. For one thing, it's more fun than going to random.org and hitting generate. There's no sense of satisfaction. You just get a number, and with the math rocks, you get to hear them clack around.
I was gonna say everybody needs clack clacks.
Yeah. Well, guys, we are gonna dive back into the Answers in Genesis. So most recently, Answers in Genesis was Genesis Apologetics. I know what I'm talking about here. This is from a conference that Genesis Apologetics hosted, and the only other creationists they got were like ICR, which just goes to show you how much ICR has fallen, that they're willing to go hang out with Genesis Apologetics, which is like, it's like a C-tier creationist organization, right? Like, you get CMI and AIG, and like, they're A-tier, and ICR used to be an A-tier too, but then like, they dropped down to like B-tier recently. And then like, you get C-tier with like Genesis Apologetics, and then you got like D-tier, like Carl Baugh's Creation Museum, or Creation Evidence Museum, sorry, and like Kent Hovind's Creation Science, whatever.
So I'm laughing at Olivia Williams, who said it must be hard to roll dice with those arms.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
These are my original Vampire the Masquerade dice that I got. And they've still got the original little Ankh on there. It's going to be really hard because my camera doesn't want to autofocus, but they are the original marbled green with red. So.
Is that from the 90s?
You can see it.
Straight out of the 1990s? Yeah. Yeah. I remember...
When White Wolf was still, like, super edgelord.
What was it? Mysteries of the Unexplained. They started talking about Vampire the Masquerade, and they were using a bunch of, like, D12s and D4s, and we were both just like, what is going on here? That's not how Vampire the Masquerade works.
That's literally like how Zero freaking White Wolf games work. But okay. Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, we're being told by Dan Biddle, the head honcho of Genesis Apologetics, why it is that the sauropod is the only option for what behemoth in the book of Job could be, which is like, what, Job 40? Wait, where'd the feeders go?
Oh, sorry. I think my webcam freaked out for a second.
Okay. I'm going to hit play while we try to fix that.
Oh, there it is.
Yay.
There's the size of its thigh bone.
I just want to point out, it said under this sauropod thigh bone, largest animal ever. No, the largest known animal ever is the blue whale. It is not a sauropod. Sauropods were the largest land animals known, and there is a big distinction there.
There's how big the footprint can be. God says this...
That's a nice hind footprint, by the way, in case anyone's wondering. That is a right hind leg of a sauropod.
This is the chief of all of my creatures, the very first in rank. So there it is. Look at the design feature that we're looking at here. We go from one thick bone to two, split down to 4 or 5, split down to the toes. That is a weight distribution system that any engineer would recognize.
What?
Dapper.
I'm confused.
Are you and I about to say the same thing? Because I was about to say, how many other creatures have the 1 to 2 to a bunch of little tiny ones?
Like all of the tetrapods. Every last tetrapod. Frogs have kind of fused the 2 part, but like embryonically they start with 1, 2, bunch of blobs, then fingers or toes.
But that's not evidence for common ancestry. No. That's just evidence for common designer.
Obviously, yeah. Well, the problem here is, like, he's trying to equate graviportal adaptations, which is adaptations to being heavy, basically. You see it in a lot of really big animals, like, basically starting around, like, the size of, like, larger bovids. So things like buffalo, bison, cows, bulls, all the way up into things like elephants, and then of course if you go into the past, you get things like Indricotheres and sauropods and things like that. All of them have various adaptations called graviportal adaptations. This just means that you have to distribute huge amounts of weight somehow. One of the first things that you do is you go from bipedal to quadrupedal if you're a dinosaur. So that's why all the biggest dinosaurs tend to be quadrupeds. So that includes things like, the ceratopsians, the sauropods. They all have bipedal ancestors, but they have a, tertiary quadrupedality, since they were primarily quadrupeds as tetrapods. Then they got secondary bipedality. Then they evolved a tertiary quadruped stance. Which is also why dinosaur front feet in quadruped dinosaurs are always weird. It's because they went through a period when those were arms, and now they're arms that are being shoved back into being feet. But the thing is, having a separate, tibia and fibula aren't really graviportal adaptations. And the way that you can tell is you can look at other dinosaurs that were also very large. In fact, you can find bipedal dinosaurs that were larger than some of the smaller sauropods. And they actually have the fibula is reduced to the point that it's hard to notice. At just first glance, it actually looks like they just have one lower leg bone. They don't. It's there, but it basically has just been reduced to a vestigial organ. Ooh, weird, huh? And, so, this is not an adaptation to that. Now, the columnar arrangement of those bones, the fact that they go straight up and down, unlike, say, a dog, where dog-legged is actually like a term for a zigzaggy thing. The reason for that is that dogs are built for speed, and that zigzaggy pattern helps them with their stride length and given their height. But the straight up and down columnar nature...
we bred dogs for speed.
Well, dogs had that kind of dog leg back when they were wolves. Canines.
I would say that in order to not bait the creationists that might be watching, they adapted for speed, and we bred them accordingly.
Yes. But that columnar thing that you see in sauropods, but you also see that arrangement in elephants and Indricotheres and rhinos and other heavy animals, that's really the adaptation. But that doesn't sound very significant, because that's just they got straight up and down legs. Yeah, that doesn't sound as significant. But yeah, it has nothing to do with the 1-2 bunch of fingers. In fact, if you look at the front legs of later sauropods, they don't have fingers. They evolved away fingers. So
it's almost like they didn't need them.
Yeah. All right, we're going to hit play.
Then if you look at how sauropods are designed, you can't have a long neck without a long tail. You can't have a long tail without a long neck. They're designed like a suspension bridge because you need tension loading that's offset by compression loading.
Why can't I
pause? So a perfect design with those creatures. And I want to end with just one quick thing here.
Why can't I pause?
Past the DNA. And
there it is.
It's become self-aware.
Yes, the computer's is like, no, you have to suffer. Okay, so first of all, can you think of any animals that might have a long neck without a very long tail? Maybe that are alive.
Giraffes?
Now, are you telling me that a giraffe does not have a tail that's at least as long, if not longer, than its neck? Because, I don't know.
Well, Dapper. Listen, people just forget that my kosher warbeast exists, and I'm not okay with that.
We'll have to find someone who raises and slaughters giraffes for food, just so you can finally have your kosher giraffe.
You have to eat them. I'm just saying that if you were in a very dire situation, and that was a consideration that still actually mattered to you while you're starving, which it wouldn't, because Judaism puts the value of your life over a rule about what you're eating. You could, if that situation hit those circumstances, eat a giraffe.
What does that have to do with it being a war beast?
I intend on fully mounting an army of kosher war beasts so that we can charge the Vatican and take the menorah back.
Okay. Well, I just wonder because historically, generally Jews haven't had a problem with using horses as riding or beasts of burden, riding animals or beasts of burden.
Yeah. But, just for the psychological warfare side of it, I think seeing a giant herd of giraffes charging towards you might give you just a few extra seconds.
Okay, yeah, no,
those could be critical.
I can see that. Let's see. Where were we? Oh, right. Okay. So the long neck and the long tail. Yeah, the tail of sauropods is probably not much of a counterbalance like it is in, say, theropods. And that's because sauropods can use their front legs to help balance themselves out. That's also why things like giraffes, in fact, can have very long legs and they don't just topple over, because the center of mass is not so far forward that the neck is a problem. That's also part of why, sauropods have really, really tiny heads compared to the rest of their bodies. So, like, yeah, I don't... But also, like, sauropods, like, we have...
swans.
Yeah, we
That's
have...
what the chat's saying, too, so...
Yeah, geese, swans. Tanistropheus is not a very...
Alpaca?
Alpacas, yeah. Basically camels in general. All the camelids.
Mm-hmm.
Carrie Bronson for $5 says, as a rule of thumb, when a creationist or any pseudoscientist makes a sweeping generalization, you can find a counterexample within 10 minutes. Yeah, basically. So, yeah. But also, like, we have prosauropods, right? We have things that are closer to sauropods than they are to any other kind of dinosaur, but they aren't technically themselves sauropods. Like sauropodomorphs and whatnot. And they're mostly bipedal. And they already have the long tail. Because the thing is, archosaurs, like, go back before Dinosauria, already have long tails. So if you want to say that something is some kind of, like, big problem for evolution, right? And you say, oh, the evolution of sauropods couldn't happen because of their long tails. Well, I mean, the thing they evolved from that immediately wasn't a sauropod also had long tails, so why is that a problem? You have to go back to the point where the thing that you think is a problem actually emerges, and then show why it's a problem there. Why couldn't archosaurs get long tails?
I would also like to see the numbers on a menorah carbon dioxide out versus, standard cars. Ugly German truths.
Yeah, take that. I'm gonna have to say, yeah. 7 little flames is not really gonna be
7 little oil lamps, and which, by the way, oil lamps, people used to have oil lamps that don't produce copious amounts of smoke, but whatever.
Well, it's still gonna produce the carbon, though.
Doesn't mean it's not gonna produce the carbon, but...
Yeah. But yeah, that's gonna be a pretty...
combustion engines.
Yeah. It's basically 7 candles is the effective amount, and, like, I guarantee you that driving to go see the Vatican is going to cost more carbon than, like, 1,000 years of burning a menorah.
Yeah.
That's might be an exaggeration, but yeah, it's going to take a long time to equal the amount of carbon it would take just to drive to the Vatican.
Yeah. Or fly.
Apparently, I cannot hit the play button. I have to use the spacebar.
I want to talk to you guys about this. And all the notes here are going to be in your notes there, but there's one thing I recently learned about a week ago that really blew my mind about the design feature of humans between our eyes and our ears. So just take a minute, put your thumb out in front of you if you can, and stare at it with your eyes. Lock your eyes onto it like a radar.
Is he just going to do, like, hey, you've got stereoscopic vision and, like, parallaxes of things? Are you going to do close one eye then the other? I hope it's not that stupid.
Well, I hope not.
And then move your head left to right while keeping your gaze on your thumb.
Yeah, okay.
You notice how your eyes stay focused on your thumb? Now try it up and down. Go up and down, and then do it fast. And your eyes never lost focus of your thumb. The question for you, did your eyes move when you did that?
Yeah, of course they did.
This is so dumb.
Has Dan Biddle just now figured out that humans have gaze stabilization in the last week or so? Is that really what we're getting from this? Because that's what it sounds like. Which, like, I thought that was pretty basic. I'm pretty sure I figured that out when I was a little kid, that humans have gaze stabilization. Like, I might not have been able to use those terms, but, like, this is... Okay, Dan.
I'm 100% with you, Trippy Liquids. That emoji combo is... Yeah.
Yeah, the cigarette and the
face. Exhausted, like... Yep.
Yeah.
Big mood. But also the slide is just legitimately baffling to me. The eye and the ear are chemically, hydraulically. Do eyes have hydraulics in them? Like, do ears have hydraulics in them?
I mean, not hydraulic, like, joints or anything. There's fluid in there.
mechanically and electronically connected. I guess if you think neurons,
neurons
qualify, but
they do transmit electrical signals, so kind of.
Yeah, but simultaneously synchronized. Isn't that redundant?
Yeah. Plus, also,
Also, what is that whole thing supposed to mean or be getting at? Because
well, let's find out. Maybe he'll tell us.
They actually did. Do you know that God has put in a system?
He says they actually did because apparently his audience is too stupid to notice that gaze stabilization requires eye movement. Amazing. I will say this. I've never seen anyone who thinks less of the intelligence of the average churchgoer than professional creationists.
Yep.
It's frankly kind of insulting on behalf of all the churchgoers who are young Earth creationists. Which, as you might know, is not me. But, like, it was me at one point, and I'm thinking, like, I was never this stupid.
Called a VOR system that's a reflex that moves your head. When your head moves, your ears and the fluid in your ears with the endolymph and all the stereocilium.
That's probably what he means by hydraulically. He's probably talking about the sense of balance from your inner ear and how that does connect to your visual perception to both move your eyes and keep your subjective sense of up and down roughly aligned to the actual.
I was going to say, because your sense of balance, I would say, is probably a little more impacted by that, but okay.
There is a system built in, a motion sensing system with 6 sensors, 3 in each ear, your semicircular canals.
It's actually an acceleration sensor, but, you know.
That is tied with your eyes to offset your movement to keep your gaze locked ahead. So when God brags and says in Proverbs 20 that the hearing ear and the seeing eye, the Lord has made them both, we have a navigational system built in that has sight and motion sensing with our ears. And it is the most amazing system. It's called the vestibulo-ocular reflex. Mm-hmm. Look it up. If I have more time, I'll try to get into it today if we have some filler time, which we probably won't.
And this makes the behemoth in Job sauropod somehow, I guess, because I feel like this is still...
Therefore God made dinosaurs.
So, if you guys have gee whiz, that's cool, therefore God, anywhere on your, or anything like that on your bingo cards, yeah, you can feel free to check that off. Which, by the way, Tapioca Weasel has just posted a link to bingo cards.
But you guys, it is an amazing, amazing system, the design that we have with our human bodies. Okay, so let me go on and hand on the next talk here.
Oh, hey, we're done with Biddle. We get a new guy now.
And I'm going to get you queued up.
Who is it?
I don't know.
I want to make sure that we keep with time. And Joe's got some other stuff to cover as well. All right, let me see.
Joe, I guess it's Joe.
We'll cover that with the flood.
Whoever the heck Joe is. All right, come on, buddy.
We got sound there?
Let's go. Great.
That video, I love that video because there's something that we need to understand about mankind. And I'll read it to you from Romans 1 before I get into my... Suppresses the truth.
Wait,
119. So
Joe?
I don't...
Who?
Yeah, I don't know. Just Joe. But also,
he's giving this big youth pastor energy here.
Well, he's also giving us they're suppressing the truth in unrighteousness. Cool. I don't care.
Well, don't care.
Yeah. Evidence or
don't care.
Evidence
don't
or
care.
GTFO.
Still don't care.
For what can be known about attributes in the things of nation, and as I know that if you are a true believer in Christ, am I prepared to give a reason for the hope that's in me? Am I prepared to defend my...
Hey, pro tip to everyone. If you're asked to give a reason for the hope that's in you, that's a reasonable ask, and I think the Bible is reasonable in telling you that you should be prepared to give such a thing. One of the things that's not a good reason is telling everyone who doesn't agree with you that they're just evil for not doing so, because they obviously do believe you and they're just in denial. It's not helpful.
Yeah, no. But also, I know it's probably the authors implied this, but let me just give you people that use the Greek text of the Bible as a little pro tip here. When it says be ready to give a reason, they probably meant good reasons.
Yeah, probably.
Just putting that out there.
Yeah. And quoting a part of the Bible that says the people who disagree with you are just wicked, probably not going to help. Because
not a good reason.
Even if it's true, that's probably not their self-understanding.
Nope.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, and we have expert in the wrong field. Yeah, that's a good one.
My faith when it comes to creation. I'm not a scientist like Dr. Biddle. I'm not a scientist.
Yeah, don't think.
Well, no one is a scientist like Dr. Biddle, for the very good reason that Dr. Biddle isn't a scientist. To be a scientist, you first of all don't have to have any kind of degree, right? That's not the key thing that makes you a scientist. What makes you a scientist is that you're doing science and that you're actually getting your science checked by other people in the field.
That same field.
Yeah, the same field.
Different fields, by the way.
Dan Biddle isn't doing that. He's putting out cutesy little YouTube videos that he then translates into 12 different languages, and then he does another one. That's not science. Now, there's nothing wrong with putting out YouTube videos. Hello, from a guy who puts out YouTube videos. However, I'm not pretending to be a scientist. I'm not a scientist, because I'm not doing science. I'm at best doing science communication, which is also valuable, but it's not doing science. So yeah, literally no one is a scientist like Dan Biddle.
It's like with some of the speakers that we'll hear today. So am I ready? This is a kind of a scary topic that maybe prohibits you from being the witness that God has called you to be. And so I think this is incredibly important. So the creation itself, it pours out speech about who our God is, revealing his power and his glory to all of creation.
Look, if you look out at universe, I'll say, and you think it is obvious that it's created and that it gives you a sense of, obviously there's some kind of greater intelligence involved. First, your subjective impression there isn't evidence. But second, that's great. It doesn't help anyone else. I'm not going to tell you not to believe it. I don't care. If that's the impression that you get, I mean, I can't say you're wrong. I can't tell you that no one created the universe. But like, oh, and Carrie Bronson for $5. Romans 1:20 is as useful with unbelievers as Ezekiel 23:20, which I don't know off the top of my head. What's Ezekiel 23:20? We gotta look it up now.
I'm just gonna keep singing the impression that I get.
All right,
for all you 90s and 2000s era kids.
Ezekiel, what was it? 23:20? 23:20. Okay, now I'm looking it up. Oh, yeah, we're not going to read that one out loud because now I remember which one that is.
Gotta just Google that in another tab.
That's the one that's on the X-rated side.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, you should definitely take that passage literally, creationists.
And that naturally man suppresses the truth. And so when they look out and see the world, and they look at some of these discoveries, the more we discover, the more speech is being... A theory that says it's all just chaos, designed harmony. And so if someone can believe that, they can close off this, the person...
I'm getting to the point where, like, I want him to make an argument about science. I'm not sure if he's going to. So when I unpause and he's not doing
rhetoric at this point.
You're speaking to, recognize that there is a God who created them. Recognize revealing light of Christ by the Holy Issue.
Also, if this were a drinking game, then I would say every time he says recognize, you take a drink instead of saying recognize. Recognize.
Recognize.
Yeah. There's extra syllables in that word. Not syllables, the consonants. Extra consonants. Oh, and a syllable, yeah.
Creation is the expression of an invisible God. See Christ. Do we see? I'm not a scientist. To you, sound...
Gee, really?
He's not a scientist. That's true. I'll take a drink of my tea here. Oh my goodness.
Waves are leaving
I
from
really
my
feel like
mouth,
I should have put
from
bourbon
the
in this coffee.
Yes. Look, it's always a little bit of a toss-up. Like, do I spike my coffee for Saturday shows? Because it's going to be painful either way.
Speakers to your ears, and there's these little tiny bones that are hammering out a message onto like a drum that is sending chemicals that are running over all these little follicles so that your brain...
I mean, no, the little follicles are getting like actual pressure waves.
Yeah, they're the pressure waves.
Yeah, the chemicals are neurotransmitters that are going between neurons to transmit the signal that is transmitted internally in each neuron electrically, but then between the neurons there's a little gap called a synapse, and between those neurotransmitters have to go. That's the chemical aspect. But also, when he's talking about the 3 inner ear bones, there's something interesting about the 3 inner ear bones.
You mean the snail that lives inside your ear?
No, that's the cochlea. I'm talking about the incus, the malleus, and the stapes. Not the little tiny snail that lives in your ear. That's separate.
Not the tiny snail.
No. But the three bones in there. So there's this interesting thing with mammals and the rest of all tetrapods, right? So mammals only have 1 bone per side in their lower jaw. It's the dentary. Whereas everybody else has extra bones, like a syringular and an angular bone and an articular bone, things like that, right? So interestingly enough, also, in embryological development, the bones of your inner ear actually start over by the back end of your jaw. And then as you grow as an embryo, as a mammal, they migrate into the ear. And they start in the same place that the other jaw bones start in things like amphibians or reptiles. So, you know what some scientists, some evolutionary biologists predicted? They predicted that we would find a mammal relative, proto-mammal if you will, that actually has the regular amphibian and reptile, the normal tetrapod jaw joint, as well as an incipient mammal jaw joint. And then later on, we would find examples of increasingly mammal-like animals where the jaw bones are migrating closer and closer and closer to the inner ear. And then you know what they found? Yeah, that exact thing. Starting with Probanognathus and then going closer and closer into actual crown mammals. You can actually watch the ear bones develop from jaw bones, both ontogenetically, in embryos of modern mammals, but also through the fossil record. It's almost like just him pointing out those inner ear bones is itself a slam dunk for evolution. Because you know what creationists never predicted? Creationists never predicted double-jawed proto-mammals. Because why would they?
They don't predict anything.
Correct. Well, okay,
that's in the scientific field.
That's not fair. Sometimes they do. It's just that whenever they do, those predictions are different from the predictions of actual science, their predictions fail when tested.
Shocking.
But they do make some predictions. Trudy Stubbs, who's been a member for 3 months and is at the amniote level, says, the stimuli from his words through my ear bones are dissolving my brain cells, with some eye-rolling emojis. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Also,
it's okay you were using those brain cells anyway, right?
Yeah. No, clearly not. Also, I think we're 35 away from the next feeder video.
Isn't today's goal 60, not 55?
Oh, I don't know. Is that what it is? In that
yeah,
case,
it goes up just slightly.
Oh, okay. I may have forgotten about that.
It's kind of like what Bent did with the tutu.
Yeah. Well, I do the same thing with the feeders, because if I leave it as it was, eventually it's just every time. It's not really a goal. It's just a thing that happens. All right. Well, in that case, then we are 45 away, I believe.
Can interpret them. And as that all hammering is happening and the chemicals are happening, you're able to hear, understand, and ask yourself, is this guy full of it?
Uh-oh, Arachamian just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships, which I believe, once those are claimed, will be enough for another emoji. And there was a request for a Vishanti emoji. So I'll tell you what, guys. Think about...
But also, in addition to the fwing, there was another...
Well, what I'll say is...
You had put a projector up there, and you realized after the fact that there was already a projector emoji.
Yeah.
So you switch it out for the fwing.
Right.
But there was something else that they recommended, and I can't remember what it is right now.
Well, guys, put in the chat, tag me with your recommendations for what another emoji should be, because I believe that we get another emoji at this point. I can't guarantee it. But if we do, I will make sure to put in, a stand-in emoji real quick, that YouTube doesn't take it away if my membership just ticks just below the threshold. But also, I want to say thank you to Erachamian, and also note that the recipients are Gregory Nietzsche, Christopher Canadatheist, Charles Starbuck, Sahbi, and Eric Davis. So welcome. Also, Royland Hutchins for $2 says Freeders with an extra R. There you go.
Free
also,
the feeders.
Jason, I believe. I'm not sure. The little version isn't telling me. What is it? Jason Kinnaman. There you go. Gifted a membership, and it went to Laughing Coyote. The same Laughing Coyote who got me dice, which I just got today. Which,
Woohoo!
yes, they're very nice. All right, here we go. Let's hit play. Finally, this guy gave me something to talk about.
Strawman. They said it was a strawman.
Oh, a strawman. All right. Well, here's what we'll do. I'm going to put a poll up. So, and I'm not going to put turtle in here because the thing is, this is actually a poll about like we want one or two things. There's already a stock turtle emoji. We don't need enough bespoke turtle emoji.
Nebulon also points out there's already a top hat.
Yeah, but it's not my top hat.
Okay.
My top hat is special enough. Yeah, I like my top hat better.
Okay.
Anyway, okay. What should the next emoji be? We've got Vishanti, Strawman. Those are the options. Strawman, 1 or 2 words? It's 2 words now. Whether or not that's correct.
Quietly Googles it in the background.
I noticed. 2 words? Okay, good. All right, so those are the options. I'm
voting Strawman just because I want to see you render that because it's probably going to be hysterical and awesome.
Well, I would hope so, but here we go. No, we're not getting a second pelagic tunicate emoji. That's not an option.
You left that off the poll, Dapper.
No, I didn't. It was never going to be on the poll. We have 1 pelagic tunicate emoji, which is way more than we need. It's 2 more than we need, really.
Someone keeps complaining about them, yet spent time out of his own life making one.
Hey,
and uploading it of his own free will.
I feel really attacked right now. And I don't appreciate it. I don't think it's necessary to attack me like that.
Says the person who took literal, hours probably out of his day of his own free will animated and created and uploaded a pelagic tunicate emoji.
I didn't animate a pelagic tunicate emoji.
Draw, sorry.
There's no animation. All right, we're hitting play.
You drew it.
I did.
In whatever program.
It was done in Blender. Yeah, it was done in Blender. Well, I do most of my art.
All at once.
You blended a
pelagic.
Yes.
Amazing that we have the ability to receive information and also process information and have simultaneous thoughts all at the same time.
I mean, it's really cool, but again, cool, therefore God is not an argument. You haven't established that you couldn't have cool things without God.
Right.
That's...
And I know that women are much better at that than men, okay? Right?
Casual sexism. Is that on the bingo card?
I don't know. Is casual sexism on the bingo card?
Dang it. It's not.
Oh.
Crap. It's not on mine, at least.
Well, yeah, we do actually have more options for the bingo cards than can fit on a single bingo card, so not all of them have the same option. There is that. At least that's my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
When a man's focused, thinking about something or talking about something, like when I'm driving, I'll tell my wife a big story like this one, and suddenly we're lost, right? Where she can do both, okay? So God has created us different and amazing. So my name's Joe. I'm one of the pastors at Encounter Church in the Thomas. I love the Lord Jesus Christ. And I love you, and I'm so glad we're here to talk about this subject.
What does this have to do with science?
So, nothing. We're going to skip ahead again. Let's see. Nathaniel Gray says, how do I feel about pelagic sea snails? Well, they're fine. Fine. Look, snails aren't typically sessile. What, against tunicates?
That's profiling.
Against tunicates?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. I'm okay with it.
Just casually admitting it. Just saying it with your whole chest.
Yeah.
Right here live on air.
Yeah. I discriminate against certain tunicates, specifically the pelagic ones. I don't do that with snails. Snails are fine.
Alive for all these millions of years and just hasn't managed to get over the tunicate profiling.
That should tell you how much they offend me after all these millions of years.
that kind of hate runs deep, y'all.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of work.
Well, you weren't there for their crimes against all other life forms way back in the
Jurassic Tunicate killed my parents.
One question I asked early as a believer is, do we really have to figure this thing out?
No, you don't.
We should try to get to the God stone.
Yeah, here's the thing.
No.
You can believe in things without those things giving you every last answer to every single possible question. That's okay too. Yeah. You can be a Christian and not know what that means for the history of life on Earth. Like, you don't need to know the history of life on Earth to believe most things.
Of Darwinian thinking. It's like, well, maybe I do need to reconcile this. And at a certain point, I recognize
maybe
I need
don't.
Yeah. You don't have to. And also, you can reconcile it in multiple ways. You don't have to reconcile it by just rejecting science, right? There are plenty of Christians out there who aren't science deniers. Just be one of them. That's fine. As long as you're not denying science, I don't have a problem with your... Well, also, and not using your beliefs to justify mistreating others. Those are the two things. If you're not doing either of those, I don't care what your religious beliefs are. But once you do one of those, then suddenly I do care all of a sudden. So yeah, don't harm others as motivated by your beliefs. And also don't go around rejecting science and encouraging other people to do it. After that, have fun with it. I don't care. Believe in Jesus. Believe that Muhammad's the final prophet. Believe Joseph Smith's a prophet. You know what? Go try to become a Zoroastrian, although most of them don't accept converts. But hey, good luck. That's actually a big debate in Zoroastrian circles right now, because they're very scattered, and so there's a high rate of married with non-Zoroastrians, and so the question is, should we allow at least spouses of Zoroastrians to convert? So that way their kids can be Zoroastrians? And there's a whole bunch of people who are just like, no. Like, okay, well, probably going to be the extinction of Zoroastrianism. Like, yeah, probably.
Figure out, because I believed in evolution, but I knew that I have a creator who saved me through Jesus Christ.
Okay.
So I didn't know what to do with it.
What does this have to do with science?
Nothing. That's why we're continuing to click ahead.
I'll take it.
You know what? We're gonna zoom ahead until this guy is gone. This guy is boring and lame and pointless.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Here's Randy Kaluza. Oh, Randy's gonna have some great A stuff.
We should have taken the L and listened to Youth Pastor Guy.
No, we're listening to Randy Galuza. Randy Galuza, the head of ICR, the Institute for Creation Research. Here he comes. Yes, clap for Randy. You go, Randy.
Well, I guess he wants me to pick up right where his talk left off right here on all of those things. Thank you so very much. Wow, he had a lot to cover.
Yeah, and it was all really boring and dumb.
Up here on all of this. There we go. Thank you so much, Dan Biddle, for organizing this, and Jessup. What a wonderful, wonderful conference this is, and the joy to my heart is...
Johnny Rapine says, isn't there like a lone surviving Quaker or Shaker? There are a whole bunch of Quakers, first of all. They're doing pretty well, and also... they're not even really a Christian group at this point. They're like I don't even know what to call it, because Christianity is usually defined by beliefs, and many Quakers don't actually share the beliefs that usually would be considered minimally Christian. Like, a lot of them aren't theists, and a lot of the ones that are don't believe in like the incarnation, and like it's an interesting group. They're basically tied together more by common ritual and a sense of kinship, as well as a common ethic, than they are by theology.
Very, very close to how Judaism operates.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of Quakers.
Orthopraxy versus orthodoxy.
Mm-hmm. As far as Shakers, as far as I know, yes, there are like one or two Shakers left. They're very elderly, unless they've died recently. And the reason Shakers didn't really last a whole lot is because basically they were like, no sex for anyone ever. So the only way they got new Shakers was by conversion. And in order to convert to be a Shaker, you also had to be like, yeah, sure, none of that ever. Not even with your spouse. I feel like not too many...
Congratulations. It's a bunch of like voluntary asexuals.
Yeah. Like, most people aren't really down for that. You know?
Human biology doesn't really contribute to celibacy much.
Well, chastity. Celibacy is fine.
Chastity, you know what? That is a better description, chastity.
Yeah, because technically the Shakers weren't celibate. They were chaste. And in case anyone's wondering, the difference is celibacy means you don't get married. Chastity means you don't have sex. Technically, you can be one and not the other, or the other and not the one. So, for instance, if you're not celibate but you are chaste, get married. But then you don't, actually have sex with your spouse or anyone else.
And then it's like, wow, what about the super old rubric of you don't get officially married until you've consummated it? So are they married?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, because in most places, if you haven't consummated the marriage, then you can get an annulment, in which case, legally the marriage never took place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. Although I guess if you converted as a married couple who had consummated your marriage to the Shakers, and then you started to be chaste after that, then yes, even by that standard, you would still be married.
Interesting loophole.
Yeah, okay. Well, okay. Anyway, now that we're done talking about the Shakers, which is a complete tangent. Here we go.
Tangents on our stream, it's more likely than you think.
Seriously. Someone should start a timer for whether we spend more time on tangents or more time on topic.
Tangents.
Probably tangents.
So many young people out here. Wow, what a blessing. That's a good one. I go to most talks and I see an ocean of gray hair, and nothing wrong with it.
No, I'm not even going to make a comment there.
Okay. Other than, hey, you're losing the youth for a reason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've got
Although, to be fair, it's a long-standing fact that over time, people tend to become more religious as they get older. I don't know. That's been the case for centuries. But,
you myself, but it's just really, really good to see so many young people out here. So today, after this, the goal of my talk is that you will never, ever, from this day forward, does that sound pretty definitive? Never, ever, from this day forward, look at creatures the same way again. Because I'm here to tell you that you've been evolutionized in your thinking, even if you've been a creationist for a very, very long time. And it's about time we change that. So as you see here, I'm going to present a completely new way of looking at adaptation. This is a two-part talk.
In a completely wrong way.
Yeah. By the way, if I remember correctly, he's actually the one who closes out this whole section. Because there's a whole other video. This is a two-part thing, and each video is 2.5 hours. So, Shanti, we're stuck here for a while, looking at this room. It's only a couple hours a week. You can hack it.
Okay.
This afternoon after lunch, I'll present the second part. This morning, I want to look at the engineer-based approach to speaking of biological adaptation. Now, we've already been mentioned that we had someone who was born again. I had that.
What does that even mean?
Born again.
How many conversion experiences can you possibly have to the same religion?
Well, if you're an evangelical, you're constantly being put in a situation of questioning whether your experience was valid enough. So, you get stuck in this really awful cycle of guilt and rededication because you're well, I just wasn't serious enough, meaning you weren't doing enough Christian-y things and the right attitude enough. So you rededicate yourself over and over and over, and then at some point, sometimes you might actually tell people, well, I thought I was saved. I was in the choir for 30 years, but then I actually got saved.
It's kind of maybe basing a whole lot of your theology on a personal subjective experience that everyone's required to have might not have been the best idea for a long-term mental health outlook.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a nice, that is one of the nice things that I'll say about quite a few other conversion rubrics is that once you complete it, that's it.
Yeah. Most religions do not consider a subjective emotional experience to be the thing that counts as you joining the religion.
Nope.
Most of them have a formalized process in which after meeting the requirements, whether they be belief or willingness to perform practices or whatever else, and then once the formal thing is done, now you're a member of that religion until you actively choose not to be.
Yep.
So, yeah.
That same experience, I was born again, and that's because I picked up a magazine called Acts and Facts when I was a student at Moody Bible Institute. I took it back to one of those cubicles. I read 2 articles, and it changed my life from that day on forever.
Acts and Facts, is that a Gish?
Acts and Facts.
Acts and Facts.
It might actually be ICR that publishes Acts and Facts.
And he just happens to have gone to work for that organization.
No, I'm sure that experience was his motivation. I think that would be his motivation. Which, I mean, look, it's fair to have a profound experience with the output of some organization and then seek out membership in that organization, right? Like, that's a thing that happens. Yeah, it is ICR. Okay. So, yeah, this would have been back when one of the Morrises was in charge, because there was, like, the Morris dynasty that lasted for 3 generations at ICR.
Yeah.
And Randy Galuza is the first person outside the Morris family to run the organization. Yeah. So for a while, it was Henry Morris the first, Henry Morris the second, and Henry Morris the third, who were all in charge of ICR.
Oh my God, Johnny Rapine, he only reads the articles. Wink.
Goodness. You know, the magazine from which that joke is taken has apparently stopped producing the pictures that everyone was reading it for. Now they just actually do have just articles.
Yeah.
Like, correct. Okay. Now, to be fair,
he passed away. His kids were like, you know what? We're just gonna go in a different direction. It took him a couple years, but yeah, no, it's just articles now.
Hey, I haven't read the articles before or after, but maybe they're great.
Actually, I've read quite a few articles, and some of them are very well done in terms of like journalistic standard. Like,
well, I'm impressed.
Just because there's adult pictures scattered in between doesn't mean the articles are garbage. Some of them are actually quite good.
You know what? The presence of nudes does not mean that you can't have good journalism. That is a fact.
Yeah. There was one actor that who was it that starred in Misery? The guy that played the author?
I do not know.
God, it is literally on the tip of my tongue right now. The chat will get it.
Okay.
His interview in that magazine is legendary. So if you ever read an article, read the interview with him.
Okay.
Please let the chat catch up, because it's driving me nuts. I don't want to Google it. It'll come to me.
It wasn't a slow conversion away from evolution, it was an instantaneous one.
So basically the first thing that actually fed into your already confirmation bias of an extremely conservative and literalist interpretation of the Bible.
James Caan. Thank you.
Oh, there you go.
Feel and Run.
James Caan.
James Caan. Read his interview. It's just...
So yeah, basically, this is once again, we have a person who's already a member of a very theologically conservative group of Christians, who already has a bias towards taking the Bible very literally, and he finds the first thing that allows him to do that in new ways and jumps on that bandwagon. Okay, that's not a very that's not a very good story outside of the context of evangelical Christianity, or just very theologically conservative Christianity, right? No one looking at the outside is going to think that right there is a compelling narrative. You just found what you were wanting to find anyway. You just hadn't had a good excuse before, but now you did. So you jumped on it. Who cares?
No. So, if you don't get this magazine, it has been and always will be free. Absolutely free. It's at the back. Please sign up for it, and you will stay current on scientific events. It will also be useful for you.
I kind of feel like signing up for that.
I dare you.
Okay. All right, let's do it. Here we go. ICR.org/subscriptions. Okay.
James Nooney and Khan.
Let's see. New free subscription. That's what I would like to do. US. Title.
Amazing.
I don't need a title. My first name is Dapper.
KJV, get title. That's your title, KJV.
Dinosaur. My email is dapperdino. Those are the address. I'm not giving you guys the address. Enter the letters below. This is one of those CAPTCHA things. I think it's LYS.
But are you a robot?
Well, if I am, I'm a robot who can read this CAPTCHA. Confirm your
I've got my eyes on you, Mithrigan.
Okay, here we go. I'm switching the view here. So give me a second. There it is. I confirm your subscription. An email has been sent. You don't find it in your inbox. Okay, hold on. Let me go to my inbox. Go to Gmail.
Are we gonna get to directly see your inbox now?
No. All right, please click on the link below to confirm your free subscription. I'm clicking on the link below. Do something. There it is. All right. So I will, this does not have my address on it, so I'll put this over here. Email address confirmed. In addition to ICR news, would you like to be able to receive, no, I don't want that at all. I'm gonna click no and take this away in case it does decide to show my address. All right, look at that. Your subscription is now complete. I have now subscribed to Acts and Facts magazine.
Amazing. Also, yeah, at one point you were a robot dinosaur. You were
true.
The Dapper Zord.
Yeah, but like it's less of an autonomous robot and more of like, a remote control robot. Right? Like the drones that you fly, like those aren't like autonomous robots, right? They're still human control.
All right, Mithrigan.
All right, let's go back to the regular view. So there you go, guys. I will try to take pictures. Remind me in like a month or two to try to take pictures of the Acts and Facts magazine that I get and put them up on like my channel like community tab. So there you go.
I mean, that's free. That's free content.
It is. So there we go. Acts and Facts is now coming to this location here in a secret bunker underground run by the USGS in Arizona. Oh yeah, I forgot. For some reason, the play button isn't working. I have to use the space bar.
You
right.
As parents teach your children. So I know that you won't remember everything that I'm saying, so please sign up for that. I'm really not into social media a lot myself, but we're on all of these major platforms.
Oh, you're not on Truth Social? What's wrong with you guys? That's the really new hip place where all the conservative kids are going.
Are they on Telegram or Terrorgram, as it gets called?
Well, it gets called that for good reason.
Yeah, it does.
They probably are.
Mechalodon. Very nice, Eric Foxy.
Nice.
Very nice.
So today, all Christians
Is that a new
can
asylum
take their
movie?
witness.
Mechalodon?
It could be. We should write them.
I should sell that idea to the asylum.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, Eric should sell that.
Well, yeah, obviously, yeah. Eric Foxy, you should be in charge of that. We shouldn't be stealing your idea. Write to the asylum.
Make them money.
And tell them you should make a shark robot movie called Mechalodon.
It's a megalodon robot.
Yeah.
As creator and savior to the next level by learning three truths. And we're only going to cover this first one in this morning.
No.
That creatures and human
This
designs
could be a reach. Hear me out.
share.
Oh, okay.
If I were going to draw an image of people witnessing to other people, I might reconsider drawing a white guy talking to a person of color. Historically, it's not a good look.
I can see why you would do that. Yeah.
Just a little bit cringe there. I would consider maybe not drawing the color shading that way. I would just
I will say
it a little.
It might come up that per se I don't have a problem with people attempting to proselytize, provided it is in fact just an attempt to convince other people that your ideas are right, and it does not come with any coercion or any like say legal benefits that you're proposing, like in some countries where belonging to the dominant religion gives you a better legal status. Providing none of those things are okay, I'm okay with people trying to convince other people that their ideas are right. So I'm not per se against people doing that. However, there's a long history of Christian quote-unquote proselytism that came with things like, mass enslavement.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that's not okay. Although, to be fair, it wasn't Randy Galuza's organization doing that.
Yeah. I'm on record as saying that I am very much 100% against religious proselytation, and I take it as a personal affront. However, that is one of the few things that we differ on.
Yeah, and we don't have to agree on that. Like, when the Jehovah's Witnesses come by, I find it amusing, but I'm not offended.
Yeah. I also find it amusing, but I'm just too tired to engage with them, so...
Fair. Well, ever since I told them to
Usually
get back...
if I tell them, oh, hey, but I'm Jewish, they're just like, and we gotta go.
Ever since I told them to get back to me with evidence that Daniel is a mid-exilic rather than post-exilic work, they just haven't been back. It's been months.
Yeah.
Wondering what's taking so long. I mean, I'm sure because they said that they did say to me, literally, we're really good at research and we've done a lot of, our homework on this. So I expected them to come back just next week.
Okay, but maybe it's just a lot of research that they're doing and they're just making sure that their case is airtight.
Well, maybe. If they come back in the next few months with an airtight case that Daniel is mid-exilic, I'll let you guys know. Because it might not make me a Jehovah's Witness, but it'll be significant.
Oh man, Jillian just got all up in my business. Hey, let's not forget colonizing the Philippines in order to bring Christianity to them, because apparently being Catholic for centuries didn't count. Woo! Yeah. My maternal great-grandfather was born in the Philippines, so, like, I have a special, like, dual chip on my shoulders for that, so...
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, we'll help you win your independence from Spain, but that means you're immediately American, right? And the Filipinos were like, no, we're independent.
Yeah. Do you remember that whole
like,
independence part?
How dare you tell us that you don't want to be Americans immediately? We have to fight about it. So the Filipinos had to turn right around and defend themselves from us.
Yeah. Yeah. And also the fun thing is that in the US, historians for a very long time included the Philippines War as just an extension of the Spanish-American War.
Yeah.
Because why bother pointing out that the Spanish weren't even involved by that point? It's just...
The kicker is they named it the Spanish Insurrection.
Yeah, yeah.
Or Philippine Insurrection, and I'm like, really? Really?
Yeah, that's not what an insurrection is.
You just said that with your whole chest, Philippine Insurrection. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now the spacebar isn't working? There we go.
Corresponding engineered features.
Oh.
That is so important.
That's what we call begging the question. You're using this as some kind of evidence to indicate that animals in general, or just organisms in general, are engineered. You can't say that they share engineered features without already have establishing that they're engineered, and so you can't use that as evidence per se of the engineering. You gotta do more work than that. But maybe he will. He's very early into his talk, and he's got a second part of the talk. So, like I said, maybe he's got more for it.
Now, we're comparing little drones with dragonflies. And we were looking at how much better a dragonfly was than a drone. That is important. But the key fact is this, that drones and dragonflies share important engineered elements that enable a drone to do what it does and a dragonfly to do what it does.
Nope. You can say that the drone has those engineered elements and that it has similar elements to a dragonfly, but you don't get to say that the dragonfly is engineered until you've already demonstrated that. But you know what it's time for, Vishanti? It's time for a quick break.
A break.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get new beverages, stuff like that. Guys, you're going to be treated to the musical stylings of one Beethoven during the intermission. So we will be right back. All right, and we are back, and I have good news. During the break, I went and checked to make sure I could unlock a new emoji. I did. I put in a dummy image that's there. That's just a placeholder. In fact, the name of the emoji right now is placehold, so you can use it for now if you want to. But later, it will be updated to be whatever wins the poll, which right now is trending heavily towards Strawman. So take that, Vishanti. You don't get an emoji yet.
I voted for Strawman, so I don't know,
I know
why you're acting like this is a...
I know. It's because it's banter, that's why.
Oh, of course.
All right. So now that we're back, real quick, I want to say thank you for everyone who's watching. Thank you for all the super chats, the new members. I really appreciate all that. It means a lot. Also want to say, if you're interested in supporting the channel and you want to do so as a regular contributor, there are a couple ways. One is the memberships that you can join without having it gifted if you want to. There's a link right below here. There's also a link in the description to the Patreon, as well as to my wish list, and Vishanti's wish list, and Benthoven's wish list. If you want to support any of us, feel free. If you are not willing or able to support financially, that is absolutely fine. But I do ask that you hit like and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And if you can, please put on notifications for the channel, so that way you know when there's new channel stuff. And yes, people are using... That's actually the image that's on the AIG bag.
Yeah.
So I just happened to have it, and it was like, it happened to be the right ratio, which is 1:1. I was like, quick, just make that just a standing emoji. It's just here for now. So that's going to be changing soon. But yeah, enjoy the teal AIG for now, I guess. Have fun. Anyway, we're going to hit play.
Also, I highly recommend that you upload these emojis to your Discord as well, because there's been times where I thought I was gonna spam a chat with one of your YouTube emojis,
My Discord
and then
emojis
I
are full, though.
in the Discord.
They're full.
Are they?
Yeah. Most of them are taken up with the Klingon alphabet.
Of course.
Yeah, because otherwise, how am I going to write Klingon in the Klingon alphabet without the emojis?
And they're very, very commonly used.
Yeah, both me and Fearmonger use them all the time.
yeah, you and this one person.
Mm-hmm.
It's fine.
Hey, it's my Discord.
That just means that people who are members of your Discord might have incentive to boost the server, because then you get more emoji slots.
There you go, guys. Boost the server all you want. I think it currently might have one boost. That might have expired. I don't know.
And even though the engineering that the Lord has made is so much better than the human, it is the fact that they share these important engineered features together.
Not a fact.
And we will cover these other two parts this afternoon.
Look, I know I keep saying it, but it really annoys me. You can't say that something is a fact when it's the claim that you're trying to demonstrate in the first place. You have to demonstrate the claim, then you can call it a fact. And unless your claim is completely uncontroversial, you actually have to do it in the talk. For instance, if he said, it's a fact that the sky is blue, I don't expect him to demonstrate that, because there's not any big contention about that. There's a whole lot of contention about whether or not about the idea that the dragonfly is designed. You don't get to call it a fact after you demonstrate it.
But the main thing is this: when you look at an incredibly designed thing like this little baby here, and you can't leave them up on the screen very long because nobody will listen to anything I say, because there's something about babies that make people fixate on them.
It's almost like humans have an instinctive desire to protect things that look like young humans as some kind of, I don't know, evolutionary adaptation to having helpless infants. Maybe.
It's so funny because I don't have any desire to have small children or small humans at any point in my life. So I see it and I'm like, that's a small human.
It
sure is. Cool.
But what we have to be able to explain about babies and any other thing is that they all grow, metabolize, reproduce, and adapt. All living things do this. How does that happen? It's not magic. It's not magic at all.
It's not magic at all, but God did all of it. How? Supernaturally, but not via magic.
Yes, but it's not magic.
Right, got it.
Okay.
It is engineered processes.
Ryan talked about the next slide of the dancing baby screensaver.
Processes are going to function like man-made engineered in so many ways. So we are going to look for some biblical indicators. We're going to use the Bible to kind of explain for us
By the way, Bible passages aren't data about anything except what the Bible says. But in order to get from...
I brought my toast-to-toast mug up here.
Oh, nice.
Or the Bible tells me so.
Nice.
It's fine.
Yeah, the thing is, the Bible's the thing making the claims. If you want to show the claims are true, you have to do more than point out that the Bible's making them. The one making the claim is not automatically right by being the one who makes the claim.
Bad analogies to man-made stuff if you have that on your bingo card.
Yeah, put that in there.
It's so funny because they use analogies to man-made things, and then they go, all living things, and then they list all those biological processes, and I'm like, so then why are you using suspension bridges and, like, cranes? Dumb.
Yeah. Well, it's because we know those are designed, so maybe these other things are designed, even though that's the whole thing that you're trying to demonstrate.
Well, look, all you have is a hammer. Everything looks like a nail, so...
We've got the Mexican tetra as in a cave-dwelling population in the lower left. I'm expecting this to be great, because I've read the paper that Randy relies on for his Mexican tetra claim. So, looking forward to that.
And point us in the right direction in terms of our research. So let's look at some important Bible verses here. First,
by the way, in terms of research, I want to be fair to Randy. He is actually conducting right now at ICR biological research on actual living organisms to try to demonstrate that the predictions that he makes on the basis of his continuous environmental tracking, which is what he's talking about, are actually correct. So far, he hasn't really done so. Like, he hasn't actually found a good example that where the predictions from science and from his nonsense are different enough, and then shown that his gets the right predictions, gets the prediction right, sorry. But he's trying, and you know what? That's more than most of them do. So I do want to be fair and give props for that.
I will say this, that it would be really cool if people would stop using blatantly poetic passages as literal text.
What if I just say it's not poetic? Problem solved.
I mean, and it's like, you're talking in a poetic way about the heavens. Cool. People still do that. But it's the same thing, like, I saw a quote from Psalm 137, and it's like, haha, look at this passage that talks about people, like, smashing baby heads against rocks. And I'm like, have you read the whole passage? Because you probably haven't. And number two, you don't understand the context of that passage. So, quote mining, it goes both ways. Like, Christians use quote mines to prove, like, their creation, and people who aren't Christians are like, haha, look at this passage that makes everything look bad. I'm gonna quote it without even looking any further.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of times people say things like, yeah, but Jesus said, bring those people who will not believe in me before me and to slay them. And I'm paraphrasing here. It's like, yeah, but that's from a parable. It's Jesus voicing a character in an intentionally fictional story, not telling you the thing that he's telling you to do with other people.
Begging people to at least take, like, actual, like, literature courses and how to understand how to correctly read a text, but...
No, we're not going to do that. We're going to do the laziest possible thing to try to make us sound smart and everyone else sound dumb. Yeah. And remember, anything that would be bad for Christianity, if it's true, is automatically true for that reason. That's how reality
Pro tip
works.
for people who aren't Christians, you don't even have to be atheist. Pro tip for you guys, I'm just going to give this one to you for, like, free. Just because it makes Christianity look bad, doesn't mean that's an instant gotcha, because you might be making an ass of yourself.
Yeah, like if you take the movie Zeitgeist seriously. Don't do that.
First of all, Psalm 19:1 says, the heavens declare the glory of God. You know, we always stop at that part of the verse.
Do we? I don't, but sure, maybe you do.
But we need to keep reading because it says, and the firmament shows his handiwork.
Well, there's no firmament, so, you know, maybe it's not the best verse to take literally, but what do I know?
Handiwork. That is an important clue. It says that living creatures.
No, it says the firmament, which is the dome of the sky that doesn't exist. It doesn't say anything about living creatures, Mr. Let's take this passage literally, where it literally doesn't say anything about living creatures. Can you tell I'm getting a little bit heated right here?
Listen, and I have to say that if he can get salty about people not reading, past like an initial thing, but it literally, the next verse is saying like day to day, it utters speech. It night to night, it's expressing knowledge. There is no speech, but there's like, you can't hear the voice, but it's like talking.
It's all about the heavens. None of it's about living things. If anything, this is a pro-astrology verse.
Yeah.
Our
it talks about like, oh, it's like a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. Like, it's rejoicing like a strong man running a race. And I'm like, guys,
it's a bunch of
really?
stars.
His going forth is from the ends of the heaven and his circuit to the ends of it. This is because the ancient model had the sun leaving the dome, going above the dome, and coming back out on the other side in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that's talking about.
Yeah, this is not at all talking about living organisms. This is talking about the sky, and it's getting virtually every part of it wrong.
The created cosmos is handiwork. In addition to that, Psalm 8 says that this is the work...
I love who was like, oh, we don't ever read further than that. Dude, you're going to another psalm right now. If you're going to complain about people...
veins on the side of my head, like...
Oh, yeah, seriously. Look, don't complain about people not reading enough context, and then just quote one verse of one psalm, and then move on to a different psalm. That's not how context works. Now, granted, you don't need to go earlier than verse 1, because each psalm is well, with the one possible exception where a lot of psalm numbering breaks up what I think is actually one psalm into two. With that exception, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure is not Psalm 19 or 8, so it doesn't matter here, you don't need to go before the first verse, because each psalm is its own individual poem. Right? So, but yeah, the context of a psalm is at least the entire full psalm.
Of his fingers, and that we are to have dominion over the work of his hands. It speaks that says that the Lord is sovereign over the creation that his hands formed.
Shocking revelations. Bible says God created the universe. More at 11.
It also says that God laid the foundations of the earth and the work.
Yeah, those don't exist. Though.
Literally, it means literal foundations.
Yeah.
It's not speaking in metaphor. Like,
man,
this is so bad.
How's this whole biblical literalism thing working out for you there, Randy? Not so good, maybe? Yeah, that's what it seems like.
Wow.
Of his hands. David said, I meditate on your work and I muse over the ponder the work of your hands. And then, as we've already just heard in the last talk, in Romans chapter 1, it says, invisible things of him are clearly seen from the creation of the world, being understood by the things that are made.
Odd to jump all the way to Romans, but whatever, it's fine.
Made. That word is used only one other time in the New Testament, in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, where it says, we are his workmanship in Christ Jesus. So what it says is, you can look out over created things and you can see there is a creator by workmanship. Workmanship. Now, we have just read all of these verses, handiwork, workmanship, work of his hands, in all of those areas. And so we need to ask the question, what if the Bible, by telling us that when we look at creatures, it's handiwork and workmanship.
Which, by the way, at no point did it specify creatures. In fact, it more specified stars and the sun and the moon, planets, than it did creatures.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to go look and see if Mazal is in that passage at all, because if it is, I'm going to laugh real hard. Proceed.
Isn't just using figurative poetic language at all. Maybe...
Yes, it is.
Okay, look. If it's not using figurative language, then you have to believe the Bible is teaching you that there's a solid dome over the sky, and the sun goes from one side to the other, then out of the dome, back around to the beginning, and you have to believe that the earth is set on foundations, without which it would sink into something. The cosmic ocean. You don't take these passages literally there, Randy. You don't. You can't tell us...
Death has gates. That's literally in the same psalm.
Yeah. This dome has gates. Those are the floodgates of heaven from, back in this flood story in Genesis. Yeah, it's all. It's almost like the author of most of the Psalms, or the authors of most of the Psalms, and the authors of Genesis had the same very incorrect notion of how the universe was arranged.
It's like, oh, there's gates of death. Okay, that's not poetic at all.
Yeah, the gates into Sheol. Where are those, Randy?
Yeah.
Where would I have to go to find the gates to Sheol?
Obviously, there's a cave in Greece. Duh.
Well, yeah, clearly. Otherwise, how would the various Greek heroes have gone to Hades and pulled dead people out every once in a while?
The Bible is giving us a unified message about handiworks. Perhaps the Holy Spirit is telling us.
Landon is using the perfect use for the placeholder emoji when he says AIG emoji is a bag emoji of eggplant emoji, which is just great. I want to highlight that wonderful use because remember, that AIG emoji is not sticking around. It's literally just there so that I can reserve this spot so that when my number of members just ticks down just that little bit, it'll still be there. Because that's what happened with, I think it was the tunic emoji. Because I made it, and then right when I made it, it was like, oh, nope, sorry. Like, one too many people has not renewed, so now you can't have it, and I had to wait.
Dapper.
Yes.
Olivia Williams is asking the real questions.
What we got
Does
here?
cordyceps fungi show the beauty of God's creation?
You know, interestingly, it was things like that got Charles Darwin to stop being sort of like an agnostic deist and turn more into an atheist. It wasn't specifically cordyceps fungi, which, you know, are basically the fungi that turn insects essentially into zombies. And is the fungus that the fungus from The Last of Us is based on, if you've been watching that or playing the video games. But for Darwin, it was actually Ichneumonidae. The Ichneumon wasps are a family of wasps that are obligate parasitoids as larvae. They inject their eggs into other organisms, and then their eggs hatch into larvae that eat those organisms from the inside out. And Darwin was like, yeah, that does not seem very compatible with design by a loving God. I'm gonna nope out of this whole God business at that point.
I want to make a meme where it's like Darwin holding up that wasp and going, look at this and tell me there's a God.
Do it.
Please don't cry, theists. It's a meme. Don't read too much into it.
Yeah.
Us that we should expect, from a scientific standpoint, we should expect that creation, and especially creatures, will operate by the same features as handiwork. Now that is a great scientific guide. That is a great goal.
I mean, you know what? Fine. It's a great goal. And you know what, Randy? Like I said before, you're working on it, so I'm not going to criticize you yet. We'll see how that works out.
Maybe we should be setting up our experiments at ICR to look for the features of handiwork.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe we should be looking for those things. Maybe we should change course.
I actually really agree with Randy here. Yes, if you think this is true, and to be fair to him, he is, this is something you could do experiments on. And he's doing one of the things that creationists are usually loath to do, which is to test their predictions. And as much as I'm very confident, because there's already been tests on this, that Randy is extremely wrong, and as much as I know that virtually all other young Earth creationists also think he's wrong about this, and they're right about that, I appreciate that he's willing to actually do the work. Because, like, none of the rest of them are. So you know what, Randy? Good job. You actually are doing, like, the bare minimum to try to get people on board, which is to actually try to do the science. No one else is doing it.
You know, I'm actually impressed that this is one of the few English words that accurately communicates the scope of the Hebrew there.
Which one?
Handiwork.
Oh, okay.
That is almost exactly literally what it says.
Oh,
in the Hebrew, it's like ma'aseh yadav, and that literally means works or makings of the hand.
Nice.
So his hand, I should say.
Well,
so I'm like,
pretty cool, actually.
Nice job, English.
Yeah.
Rare English W.
English isn't so bad. I actually did once have a monolingual English speaker try to convince me that English was the supreme language. And the reasoning was basically like, I can express myself so well in English. I'm like, yeah, you're a native monolingual speaker of English. Of course you feel like that. But your subjective impression of how easy it is for you to express yourself in your first language, which happens to be your only language, is not really very impressive to anyone outside of that circle of monolingual English speakers.
All together in all of those areas, and that the Bible is giving us these guides. And how do we know what handiwork and workmanship is?
That's a good question.
And the only way we know what Christ's workmanship is, when he's telling us workmanship, he's got to tie it to something. And the only thing you know what that is that humans have built things. Humans have engineered things. Humans have put those things together.
And that's a good way to tell if the kinds of things that humans make were made by humans. So it's a great way to tell if this shard of, fused sediment is pottery, or if this hunk of metal is actually a human-made gear, or something like that. It's really, really, really not a good way to determine if things that you haven't seen humans make are engineered, like snowflakes, or baby deer, or cordyceps fungus.
I feel like using the old looks like framework isn't really the best way to go about this.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why science doesn't just go with, looks like, and then leave it there.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we should be looking for the same kind of...
English is, I can't believe it's not a pigeon.
I've actually heard arguments that English actually was a pigeon at some point. I don't find them very convincing. Basically, it usually comes down to, like, late Old English became like a pigeon of, like, Old Norse English, or Anglo-Saxon, I suppose, and, like, Norman French. It's like, it really didn't, though. We have a continuous textual history of that whole period, and it's really not a pigeon. And there's no way you can say Old Anglo-Saxon was a pigeon. It's very definitively has its own spot.
Funny.
Yeah.
Jillian Wren says, I have a t-shirt that reads, English doesn't borrow from other languages, it follows them into dark alleyways and rifles through their pockets for loose grammar. I need that shirt.
It is a good shirt. Although I will say, actually, it's more accurate for words than it is for grammar. English has been pretty resistant to taking grammar. Although it did grab the word are, like A-R-E, and the pronoun they, straight out of Old Norse. So it did do that.
Pronouns.
Yeah.
Of engineering principles in living creatures tied to what God has referenced to us to understand, which is workmanship, which is in man-made creatures. And that is exactly...
Man-made creatures? Like what? Like that robot arm? Okay.
Exactly what we find.
Yes.
And that's why, as you see up on the screen, we can make a prosthetic, a highly engineered prosthetic, and it can integrate. It can be controlled by the engineering that you see in a biological system.
Okay.
This is how you end up with the Winter Soldier. Do you want the Winter Soldier?
Maybe he does. Winter Soldier is great as long as I'm in control of the Winter Soldier.
Oh my god. Jelenia. Razviet.
So, here's one of the things. Let's say, just hypothetically, that the human organism, the human animal, was not designed by an engineer, and instead is what science tells us it is, which is to say, the product of billions of years of evolution, going through many various stages, resulting in what we have today as a human. Would that therefore mean that an engineer could not make a replacement prosthetic limb for a human? I don't see why. What would prevent an engineer from making a prosthetic limb for a non-engineered human that would be there if humans had been engineered? I mean, do you have any ideas?
I wasn't paying attention to some of that because I was reading the chat. I apologize.
Well, if anyone else has ideas, anyone who's paying attention to this show that I'm doing, let me know.
I'm distracted because we're talking about the Winter Soldier.
I mean, I understand. It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're different in different orders of magnitude and complexity, but they operate by the same engineering principles.
Fun fact, complexity is not the hallmark of good design. Design should be as simple as reasonably possible. Yeah. There's a reason why, like, when people are doing things like putting pipes into a house, that the pipes don't zigzag all over the place in very complicated ways. They could.
Like the Windows screensaver where they're all just...
Exactly. You could put plumbing in your house like that. You could, but no one does. because complexity is not the hallmark of good design. Now, that doesn't mean that the plumbing is actually going to be simple in your house. It's actually probably going to be fairly complicated because it's got to go to a lot of places and it's got to make sure it has enough pressure and all the valves are working and whatnot. But you still make it as simple as possible. You run the pipes as directly as you reasonably can, because complexity is unnecessary complexity is the hallmark of bad design. And I would submit to you that there are many ways in which the human body is unnecessarily complex.
Now, this is really, really important, because we've been just arguing that the evidence for design is because of how complicated living things are, how mathematically complex they are, and they are. There's no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. But look at the strength of the witness that you were truly engineered by a great creator God, when you can look at living things and man-made things, and they have corresponding features, doing corresponding functions.
But that's because that's how you designed it.
It's almost like people see the stuff in nature and emulate it with their design.
Yeah, the fact that humans have emulated a thing doesn't mean that it's designed, right? Like,
humans designed a thing they saw, therefore the things we see are engineered. Like,
doesn't follow, and it doesn't follow in the least. It's not a valid argument.
Operating in the same way and fundamentally operating by the same engineering principles.
Again, that's because that's how you designed those things that you designed. It doesn't say anything about the antecedent that they're designed based on. Also, Ericamian for $20 says, man-made systems that were designed to mimic existing systems use the same physical principles as the things they mimic. Gasp! Yeah, basically. Which, by the way, I think puts us... You said it was 60?
I think so.
I believe then that puts us $21 away.
Oh, nice.
Uh-oh, doggy noises. Hey, dogs. Quiet.
I didn't hear doggy
noises.
I did.
How hard is it for you to deny that living creatures were really engineered, if that is true?
Like this.
It's not. It's actually very easy.
Yeah. I'll do it right now. That you designed things to look like living things isn't evidence that those living things were designed. There, I just did it. It was really, really easy.
And it is.
Exactly, it is. It is really easy. Thanks, Randy.
That is really true.
I agree.
That is a powerful
Listen, man, counterpoint, and I'm exactly with the chat here. They're bringing up things like your pancreas or like your wisdom teeth not fitting in your skull right, and
yeah, that's what you get for being
elbows, knees, lower backs. All of these things have very just horrible design elements.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this stuff is not evidence. Like,
what if one of the most important joints in your body just had like exposed nerve cords running all over the place? What if we just did that? You don't have to, you know. You could not. No, that's what we're going to do. Too Young to Feel This Old just gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships, going to Wayne Rossi, Sophie Fishbach, which I think I'm hoping I'm pronouncing correctly, Fragmax75, Andrea Reventon, Old Channel.
Abandria.
Oh, sorry, Abandria. Oh, yes, I did. I almost did.
Yeah.
Abandria Reventon, Old Channel, and Lord Crocosquirrel. Thank you very much.
Crocosquirrel. Very cool.
That will make it much less likely that the emoji will disappear.
Also, yeah, childbirth. Ooh.
Yeah, childbirth is not the best. Look, when one of the leading causes of death in a species is died because couldn't reproduce, like, it's not the greatest design.
You don't even have to look at humans. You can look at hyenas. If
yeah,
you never
a lot of hyenas
again.
die in childbirth.
Oh.
Hey, have fun passing small babies through a pseudo-penis. Because that's how spotted hyenas do. It's like, yeah, that's what's the maternal mortality rate for hyenas? Oh, it's super high? Oh,
it's super high.
Great.
I've learned so many things about hyenas, and like all of them have been against my will. So
okay, here's my recommendation. Do a palate cleanser with the hyena that everyone forgets is a hyena, the aardwolf. They're adorable. They eat ants and termites.
Fine.
And as far as I know, they do not have pseudo.
Aardwolf.
Aardwolf.
That's true.
Yeah.
And And I will say, like, Nebulon brought up octopus as an example. They don't necessarily die in childbirth. They just starve themselves after childbirth to make sure that the little polyps grow properly. But yeah,
because it came up, I'm going to make a clarification. When I say dying because of reproduction, I mean in heteroparative species. That is, species that typically have multiple reproductive events in a lifetime. Semiparous species are those that only have one, and typically semiparous species have a large number of young in the one reproductive event of their life. Heteroparative species like humans or hyenas or elephants, dying in childbirth is really, really, really bad. Less so for octopus.
Yes.
Also, some octopus
have
a
I just thought
detachable
about
penis.
my octopus friend, and I got sad again.
Yeah. Yeah, look, no story about a human and an octopus becoming friends is going to have a happy ending, because octopus just don't live very long.
That is an incredibly powerful witness on all of those things. And so right now we currently look at two realms, engineering and biology. And we say engineering, it's explained by engineering principles. And then you have biology, which has life and consciousness and reproduction and things like that.
Hey, look, two different things have some similarities. That doesn't make them the same thing, right? You don't get to use the fact that there's an overlap in your Venn diagram to pretend that you can push the two ovals together to get 100% overlap. In fact, I'm like, what you're showing us right now.
You're comparing all the things you're comparing to life don't have consciousness, don't have agency, don't reproduce, don't grow.
It's almost like what you're actually doing, Randy, is showing us why your comparison is nonsense. Maybe don't do that next time.
Also, I'm trying to think of biological things. Well, I should say, obviously biological things reproduce and grow. Some metabolize, they adapt, whatever. But I'm having trouble thinking of engineered things that metabolize.
I mean, you can just go with things like using chemical fuel to power various processes, like an internal combustion engine.
Is that really metabolism?
No, but it's close enough that I think he's going to say that that's what he's talking about, if he's asked.
Okay.
And I mean, at a first level of approximation, it is the same. Because you take in various chemicals, you oxidize them, and then you exhale carbon dioxide to get rid of that excess carbon and oxygen, and then you use that to power yourself. A car takes in various chemicals, oxidizes them, and then expels the carbon dioxide.
I guess I'm having trouble connecting those two, because the metabolism of engineered things like machines doesn't self-perpetuate. Like, the machines don't go get the fuel that they burn.
They do not, no.
Whereas an animal or even fungus or plants, they procure through either growing in a certain spot or having where the little cells that intake sunlight. All that stuff, they have an active role, but your car doesn't just pump the gas for itself. It doesn't find oil or anything, so I'm like,
maybe it should. We gotta find oil. We gotta make oil prospecting cars. Just go out and prospect for oil on our own.
This is gonna turn into maximum overdrive, isn't it?
And they also adapt. They also grow. Maybe some of those things can be explained by engineering principles, but you're not going to really explain life or consciousness by engineering principles, and that is true.
Okay.
Maybe we need to realign our thinking when it comes to biology to something which bears more resemblance to reality.
Yeah, you don't get to just say that growth and reproduction are all just engineering because that you find that convenient. This is just argument from I concluded a thing. Yeah, that's not how arguing works.
He's trying to say that biological functions were engineered by a higher power, and I'm like, my man, you got a real steep hill to climb on this.
Which you're not attempting to climb currently, in this talk at least. Also, I don't know why in this Venn diagram, growth, adaptation, metabolism, and reproduction have all these overlapping areas that are unlabeled that don't seem to correspond to anything. Does he know how Venn diagrams work?
No.
Because also, biological functions should also encompass life, consciousness, and agency, since earlier they did. Randy.
That's also a square on the bingo card.
Yeah, learn how
complexity as God did it.
Yes.
Irreducible complexity. dude, really.
Randy, my man, learn how Venn diagrams work. Like, just the basics of how a Venn diagram works, because you clearly are misunderstanding the way that happens.
We take life and consciousness and all of those things, and we say, you are not going to explain any of those by biological functions or engineering principles. In other words, the real thing that makes you alive is not your biological functions, and it's not engineering. The thing that gives you consciousness, that can connect you to an immaterial realm, is not engineering or biology either.
Is it the soul? Are we going to go with it's the soul?
Humans can't create life. No, humans create life all the time.
Randy...
Reproduction is creating life.
I feel like
what is he talking about?
Randy might have gone to a school that didn't do sex ed because it was a little bit too right-wing of an area. Maybe he doesn't know about what reproduction is.
I was going to say, does he not know how reproduction works? But also, creatures are not machines. Literally, his entire argument is that creatures are machines. It's just that the engineered, machines were engineered by God.
Yeah.
Man, pick a lane.
And yeah, actually, Skulltor over 9000 makes a good point, saying, I'm pretty sure life is biological functions, which are separated out from the bubble that says life, consciousness, agency. Yeah, what would it mean to have biological functions but to not be alive? How does that work?
Isn't death the cessation of all biological function?
Thanks, Mithrigan.
Mithrigan.
That is something that is completely immaterial. And you are not going to be able to explain it by material mechanisms. But in terms of
bold claim, let's see how he backs it up.
Reproduction, growth, adaptation, and all of those kinds of things, they can be explained by engineering. So in reality, what biologists have been doing all the time is reverse engineering. In reality, what biologists have been and always will be are engineers.
No, engineers design things based on known principles to perform specific functions for humans. Biologists examine the way that life works, and even if it were engineered, that would not make them engineers. That would then make them people who are studying what the engineer in question did do. It's not the same thing. It's like calling archaeologists engineered because the things they study were designed by humans. Are archaeologists engineers because they study designed things? No! That's not what an engineer is. Isn't this just basic English? Isn't that what we're having a problem with here? Is just basic English? What does the word engineer mean?
Can you just see me staring into the void right now?
Yeah.
Wow.
Look, there's a reason that even the other creationists don't take him seriously, and why this is the best that Dan Biddle could do, because they don't take Dan Biddle seriously either.
Well, I can't imagine
They
why.
just don't know it. But they are. And the fact that
even if you're right, they're not.
That you can manipulate those things and they can be managed very rationally and logically shows that they were highly engineered all along. And so we need to
anything that makes sense was engineered is not a valid argument.
Move all of those things. Now, we already talked about man-made things don't reproduce, but let me ask you this question.
I mean, except for the humans that are man-made.
Is it conceptually impossible for a human being to engineer something to reproduce itself?
Randy, that's called gray goo. If you want gray goo, then go for it. Pro tip, you don't want gray goo. Gray goo's bad.
No, it isn't conceptually impossible. We could design something which could gather materials and change.
John Rapine says, wouldn't archaeologists be reverse engineers? Yeah, maybe. I mean, you might be able to say that biologists are reverse engineers, but that's not what engineering is.
The materials, manufacture the materials, and put the materials together and make a duplicate of itself. That is not conceptually impossible at all. What it shows you is
cells do it all the time.
But also, we're just either going for gray goo or like the Zero Dawn franchise. I don't really want to live in either world.
Oh my goodness!
So let's not do that.
Astoundingly complex that thing would have to be. That is what it is showing you.
Oh, we got a gray goo. What's that? So gray goo is a hypothetical end of the world scenario in which humans make nanomachines that are capable of reproduction by gathering raw materials from the world around them, and then essentially are only programmed to do this. And so they essentially convert all of the useful matter on Earth into more of themselves, which would include presumably probably all biological matter. So it's a end of the world scenario.
Isn't this how we get the Borg?
Well, no, because then how could there be...
Or the replicants from Stargate?
Maybe the replicants. There was also an episode of Futurama about it, in which Bender got a hold of a cloning machine that made 2 slightly smaller copies of himself whenever he put sufficient matter in the cloning machine. But the resulting clones still had a total mass higher than Bender did. And so the whole story of the thing is that Bender becomes gray goo in the course of the episode.
So we don't want to just minimize the man-made things and say, oh, this is a crummy man-made thing. No. Look at how incredibly complex this man-made thing, and the Lord's is surpassing it by orders of magnitude. You don't bring God glory by showing how bad the man-made things are. You show how great those are and how better his are. That's how you really lift him up.
Thanks for the worship advice, Randy. I don't care.
That's a better way of doing it. So it is conceptually that we could make a reproducing thing. Is it conceptual we could design something that could grow? Of course it is.
Yeah, conceive of babies.
Well, to be fair, humans didn't design babies.
I mean, CRISPR exists.
Okay, but that's fair, but I still think that overall babies were not designed by humans. They were tweaked by humans.
Just saying.
Okay.
All that shows is just how phenomenal you are.
Thanks.
Oh my God, the gray goo from the day the Earth stood still.
That's what it's showing on all of those things. So how do we actually understand that? Well, as we've been talking about here, words are important because words are what characterize workmanship. Words always characterize workmanship.
I don't even know what he's going for here. Is he just saying that
Confused.
Because we use the word workmanship, it implies design? And therefore, the design is real?
Words characterizing an object are the indicators of workmanship. No, I would say that if you have something that's got, like, an indicator of workmanship, it would be, like, the thing and the parts of that thing itself.
Yeah.
Not the words that you're using to describe it.
Yeah, that's... I mean, these words convey ideas of origins. That part's true. You use words to convey your idea about things to other people.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
The words don't indicate workmanship. It's the humans that are describing it, okay?
And when we use these words to characterize workmanship, we are sending along a message about their origin. The words are really, really important. So, how many of you have ever seen this game show here? You've all seen this here. So the top design characteristic words are Bing, purposeful. Oh, that's a great word. Regulated, complex.
Again, no. Complexity is not an important characteristic of design. Simplicity, actually. Also, regulated and targeted, and even purposeful, are not necessarily parts of design. You're just taking things from science, saying because it's cool, and because it has some similarities to design things, therefore it's always designed. Also, Seismic Nuggets has just joined the channel at the amniote level, so I want everyone to send in some cool tetrapod emojis.
Pelagic tunicates!
Not pelagic tunicates. Don't listen to this woman. She is, in fact, lying to you about the proper way to welcome Seismic Nuggets.
I would never.
Just did. In fact, you backed it up by action in putting them in the chat in a disgusting display of perversity.
Which you allowed me to do by providing those emojis of your own free will.
You have to remind me of. That's unwelcome nuance, Vishanti. It's unwelcome nuance.
Nuance.
Targeted, orderly, specified.
Also, this is going to tell you something about how, like, offline my brain is on the weekends, because when I read Seismic Nuggets at first, my brain read it as Sace McNuggets. And I was like, Six McNuggets? Okay.
You know.
And then it dawned on me, I went, oh, it's Seismic
McNuggets, yeah.
Not Sace.
Fitting and suitable, and then finally precise.
All of these only work as in words indicating design, except maybe purposeful. If you've already concluded that life has to be designed, you don't already conclude that, then with, again, the exception of maybe purposeful, all of them work just fine without an implication of actual design.
Now, when you hear words like this, so if we were to play the game show and I would say, give me these words, you'd be popping out these words. These words are telling you something about how they...
Randy, move back to the mic.
...operate, and
right.
We know as human beings they're intuitively telling us something about what? Where they came from. Where they came from.
It's like anthropomorphic language. Breaking news, more at 11.
Seriously. We got 2 news stories for 11.
So words are incredibly important, and the characteristics we use to describe them tell us something about origins. So as you look at that engine on the right, you look at all of these design characteristics of numerous interconnected parts, arrangement, proper alignment, moving, fitting, precise timing, and on and on and on. Does the engine have all of those characteristics? You would say, yes, of course it does. It was engineered.
No. Yeah, that's the thing. The reason I say it's engineered is specifically because it's not alive, so I don't have another mechanism for these things to come about. The problem with life, why this doesn't work with life, why it's a poor analogy with life, is that life observably reproduces and grows itself, and it does so imperfectly, and we know that those imperfections in the reproduction can cause differences in survivability. Once you have that, you're off to the races with evolution. Which is a problem. Now, here's the thing, right? He said, could we design something that grows and reproduces? Meaning humans? The answer is yes, and I agree with him on that. But here's the thing. Unless your reproduction efforts that you've designed in are completely 100% perfect and never, ever have any deviance in the resulting machine that is made, those machines will evolve too. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, you know what? I just thought of a fun example of humans. How did that even happen?
Oh, man.
Say it again. How did that happen?
Okay, fine. Okay. So, hopefully they can hear me. I will talk until I get the stream to catch up with me. What I was going to say is that he starts off with this whole, like, words or tell you about the thing's creator and did it, like... No. They also tell you about the person or entity using those words. And when I analyze old text or literature, I think about why the author or authors used a certain word and not another word that's close. What idea are you trying to convey with this specific word versus a different one?
Yeah.
That's important. That's going to get you closer to, like... I don't want to, like, stand on the infallible mountain of authorial intent, but there's a lot of misunderstanding that happens when you just assume versus really trying to investigate the underlying reasons for a word choice. I'm trying to be broad so that I don't get off on, like, too big of a rabbit trail.
Fair. So first of all, I have no idea how it was that you got muted there, because if they couldn't hear you, they couldn't have heard Randy. So
weird.
Yeah, sorry about that. I must have somehow managed to accidentally push the mute button for the desktop audio.
Stop censoring Vishanti.
I've stopped. She can talk now. No more censoring Vishanti. Anyway, so there's a little franchise of games that's currently mostly defunct. I don't think there's any new entries being worked on. But they were fun while they lasted. And I even used one of them as an excuse not to do a science fair project because I didn't want to. So There you go. They were called Creatures. There was Creatures 1, 2, 3. There was a kids game that I think was called Creatures Playground. I don't know. I think my little brother had it. Doesn't matter. Then there was a game that started as an expansion to Creatures 3, then just became sort of the main base game, which was Creatures Exodus. So in this, the programmers designed an artificial organism, right? And it had, in the design, various genes for things like how its neural network was arranged, how various simulated chemicals would interact, how its metabolic pathways worked. The genes were arranged into genes for various organs that defined how various organs in the organism would interact. But importantly, when these things went and did reproductive events, they would actually take the two genomes from the two parents and randomly cross them over a bit, so you got 50% from one and the other. But then also they would introduce a certain number of mutations, so that actual bits of the data would change. And interestingly enough, these man-made, designed things evolved in ways that were not designed. And you could actually watch them evolve because there was, like plugins that would let you actually analyze the raw genetic information. You could watch it change over time. And so that's one of the things. Evolution is one of those things that you cannot avoid if you have variable reproduction and the variations are heritable. So even if the first organisms were designed, it still doesn't negate evolution, which is one of the things I think creationists never get, right? They're always like, if anything at any point was designed, evolution fails. But that's not actually true. Now, first, I don't think there's any evidence that any part of life was necessarily designed. But even if there were, that doesn't help cause all that much. It's sort of the problem that I have with Sal Cordova's most of his arguments. And he knows this. He knows I have this problem. This isn't going to be news to him. Most of his arguments basically come down to, okay, well, if you're right, then eukaryotes had to be designed. So
No,
if he's right, that's a big if, I don't think he is. If he's right, it means eukaryotes were designed. Okay, great, but you're someone who doesn't think that humans share common ancestry with chimpanzees. But your arguments leave open humans sharing common ancestry with mushrooms and pine trees. And amoebas. And single-cellular algae. Like, you're not helping yourself as much as you think you are by saying, I don't think eukaryotic topoisomerase is possible to have evolved. Like, okay, cool.
The whole idea of common ancestry based on, like, shared genetics is the foundation of these home DNA test kits.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think, we're not related to chimpanzees even though we share the overwhelming majority of our genetic code with them, then you need to literally throw out every single at-home DNA kit ever.
Oh, and also anyone who's ever been convicted on the basis of DNA evidence. Not allowable.
Yes.
Especially in cases
gracious.
where DNA matches were made based on families. Because there are cases where things like, oh, who is this person? We don't have their DNA, but we have DNA from close family members, and that's how we identify them. Yeah, can't do that anymore. That's not allowed.
I can literally name several serial killers that were put away based on that.
Mm-hmm. All right,
so
but we're going to start
but we
wrapping
can
up.
tell who our human ancestors were, and I'm like, listen, if you keep going back far enough, you're going to hit something that you don't recognize as human, and that's going to upset you.
Yeah. Yeah, because it'll turn out that, oh, hey, this chimpanzee is my many, many, many times removed cousin.
Mm-hmm. It's unwelcome nuance.
Yeah, it is unwelcome. I mean, look, who cares about genetics, right? It's just literally the actual thing of inheritance. It's how reproduction works, but it's probably not important. All right, guys, so we're gonna start wrapping this up because we've actually gone a little bit over what we normally do, but that's okay. We had a little bit of a longer break than normal, and I'm having fun. So, I want to say, first, Vishanti, do you have anything that you want to announce?
Thank you to the chat for giving me more things to look into, because there are certain examples that you've provided throughout the chat that have actually made me open extra tabs in my browser for later. So
getting some high IQ research in, huh?
Getting some high IQ research.
All those tabs, look at them.
Yeah. I also have an Amazon wishlist in the description.
I will double check. I'm
feel generous.
I remember putting it in there. Yes. It says at Vishanti, which if you click that, it'll go to Vishanti's channel. And it says, apostrophe S wishlist.
My wishlist.
There There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so here for us on the 21st, Matt with Maddie, Maddie from Science Side Up will be joining me. We're going to be talking about Matt McLean. We're adding in a third Matt, mostly because I don't know that we would survive only doing Raw Matt and Matt Powell. Because we did back and forth like 2 times for each of them. Oof. And I was like, I don't know if I can take it again. I just couldn't go back to Raw Matt right away. Yeah, I had to take a break. Because they're like F or G tier creationists at this point. Like, they're not even D. They're way lower. They're lower than Ken Hovind in terms of like intelligence and ability to make sense. And even scientific knowledge. Like, I don't think Kent has ever said that there's air in space because the sun needs to burn oxygen. But Matt Powell sure has.
Goodness.
Yeah, Matt Powell and J.M. Truth, the flat earther, both seem to agree on this idea. So, like, that's the level we're talking about with them. So, Matt with Maddie on the 21st with Matt McLean, a paleontologist. Then on Thursday, the 23rd, we are getting the second episode of ICR lying about dinosaurs. In this case, they're going to be telling us how dinosaurs couldn't survive in the cold, which is why the thumbnail has a bunch of penguins. Because as it turns out, yes, dinosaurs can survive in the cold. At least some of them. Then, on the 25th, currently, my plan is to simply do another episode of this and continue plowing through Randy Galuzza's nonsense, presumably with the help of Vishanti, who currently look like you're...
I think I am available that week. It's the one after that I'm going to be at WonderCon.
Let me know. I won't invite you for the WonderCon.
Next week should be good, but the week after that I'm going to be...
All right. And unless we get a whole lot of super chats right now, it looks like no feeder cuffs next time. There you
Still
go.
Got plenty.
All right, guys. We will see you hopefully on Tuesday. Bye. Thanks for watching, but before you go, I just want to say a special thank you to my channel members and my patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Work in Progress, Ben Tovind, Tapioca Weasel, Cynically Skeptic, Denny5252, Elron Teller, Farava, Ian Chen, Landon Knoll, Mabdy Babbity, San, Sphincter of Doom, and the Venerable Bede. As you probably know, YouTube is a very volatile platform, and from month to month my income on the channel can swing wildly. But the people you see on screen are directly supporting so that I don't have to worry too much about that, and the channel can keep going as it is, and perhaps even improving. If you'd like to join this team, there are links below to join the channel or in the description to join the Patreon. The Patreon starts as low as $1 a month, and the channel memberships start as low as $1.99 a month. On Patreon, you can even get a discount for pledging annually. If you do decide to pledge, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord server just for channel supporters, as well as early access to all of my pre-recorded videos, often up to 2 months in advance. Higher tiers will unlock even better perks. Now, if the annual or monthly pledge isn't right for you, but you still want to support the channel, there is a merch store down in the description, as well as an Amazon wishlist, just for me. And if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, then if you still want to help out the channel, please just like and share these videos and make sure you comment on them. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.